We believe that the Indian Air Force has a urgent need, a requirement for single engine fighters. So we also think that it is going to happen fairly soon. We are expecting an RFI. You know, you heard the chief saying sometime in the near future, in the October-November timeframe. So we probably, will be getting an RFI around that time, and we're ready. What we are doing is we are preparing ourselves to be ready for that. Where we are working with our local partner, the Tata team, as well as other suppliers around the country, and we are trying to make sure we are ready to respond appropriately to that RFI whenever it comes in.
Of course, as you can appreciate, Lockheed Martin is the designer, developer, manufacturer of not just Block 70, but fifth generation aircraft, F-35, F-22, F-117, all the way back to SR-71. And so over a period of a long number of years, we've developed a lot of capabilities. And we've grown that. I'd almost put it in a circle, right? So you start with an SR-71, F-117, F-16, F-22, F-35, and what we're now able to do is to begin reinserting those kinds of technologies and that kind of capability back into our products. And that's what we've done here with Block 70 is the APG, starting with the APG-83 active electronically scanned array radar. This radar shares the commonality almost across the board, a significant amount of commonality with the APG-81 AESA radar that's on the F-35. So software is nearly 100%, just short of 100%, and hardware, the vast majority of the hardware is common as well. And so we're taking the lessons learned, working together with our radar partner, Northrop Grumman, the lessons learned and the technologies that have been developed, and we're taking those to new levels. So the Block 70 also comes with a new mission computer, which adds capacity, adds speed. It comes with a new data bus management system, a 1 gigabit Ethernet data bus management system, which allows all of that data to flow in real time, and ultimately it provides the maximum situational awareness to the pilot. We put new displays inside the cockpit, center pedestal display, 6x8, high resolution. We can flow video through that display. The aircraft will come with state-of-the-art electronic warfare system, and it is available also with the IRST and infrared search and track. And so as we understand more fully through the RFI process and ultimately through the RFP process, what the customer's requirements are, what the Indian Air Force requirements are here, then we can meet all of those requirements with the very latest and most advanced F-16 that's available at Block 70. And it's an aircraft then, because we have this large engine of continual technology improvement, fed largely through programs like the F-35, then that's a platform that can continue to grow. And we believe for the Indian Air Force, the opportunity is to put them and to put Indian industry in the center of that process going forward, that continues to grow technologies and reinsert new technologies into this very proven, unmatched in terms of how proven. So, well, the discussion about F-35, the starting point for that discussion is going to have to be between the Indian government and
Yes.
the United States government. But obviously, as I said, Lockheed Martin is the designer, developer, manufacturer of the F-35, and not just the F-35, F-22, and all those other products that I mentioned. So it's a great question, and one that I'm sure a dialogue that will continue between governments going forward. But at the end of the day, it's Lockheed Martin. You're asking the question to me because I'm Lockheed Martin, right? And Lockheed Martin is the producer, designer, developer, producer of the F-35, not just the F-35, every other fifth generation aircraft and all of the technologies that fed into those aircraft. And so that's what you get when you partner with Lockheed Martin, you get the world's preeminent designer, developer, and manufacturer of leading products. And the fact that we have the capacity now to take those kinds of technologies and reinsert them into the Block 70 is something that simply can't be had from any other OEM, any other contractor, any other manufacturer.
This Block 70 is so much different from the previous blocks. And so as this aircraft matures, right, and as there are future upgrades and future modifications, the Indian industry that's going to play a role in manufacturing this now becomes, part of that overall supply chain. So two things happen. One is the Indian industry now starts building a relationship with our global supply base, whether it be for the F-16 future blocks, whether it be for Block 70, whether it be for modifications of existing aircraft, or it could be for relationships on things beyond fighter aircraft, right? Because a lot of our suppliers do things in transport aircraft, they do things across the aerospace industry and engines and all of that. Indian industry now has an opportunity going through this method to become part of, have the industry-to-industry relationships across the world. There are more than 3,200 of these F-16s flying around. There's going to be modifications required. There's going to be things that go DMS, diminishing manufacturing supplies. And Indian industry now can play a role in becoming suppliers in parts of those supply chain, depending on the capabilities that these tier 2, tier 3 industries can offer and where they fit that exact niche, they can become part of that supply chain. So it's not that Indian industry is going to become a part of a supply chain only for 100 odd Indian aircraft. They can get themselves inserted into a much larger base. We're also looking at upgrading existing F-16s around the world to the similar configuration as a Block 70. We call it the V upgrade, right? As that upgrade matures, if Indian industry has played a role and they have shown to be best value, they have shown that they are capable of meeting the price targets and quality targets, they can compete for some of that work too. So the opportunities grow significantly beyond 100 aircraft procurement for India. What we have been doing, you asked me the question on Make in India and tier 2, tier 3. We have, as you are aware, we formed a partnership with Tata, with TASL. That's our primary partner, but we don't intend to stop there, right? We want to make sure that through Lockheed Martin and Tata, we form a stable and robust industrial base in India, right? That will include tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that are providing parts and providing new technologies and inserting those into the aircraft. One of the things that we're going to do on this aircraft also is, make sure that we meet DIAF's requirements through indigenous systems. So those would also, there would be opportunities to develop some of those for Indian industry. All of that put together makes it a very attractive industrial package.
The U.S. Air Force is upgrading their F-16s, and they're putting new mission computers in, new radars, the same ones that come with the offer from the Block 70 from Lockheed. And so they're also at the same time service life extending their aircraft. So we're taking what has been an 8,000 hour service life aircraft and extending it out to 12,000 hours. We ran a series of tests for over a period of about 3 years, and the U.S. Air Force has taken that data and now has recertified with those minor modifications the extension of the life of the aircraft from 8,000 now to beyond 12,000 hours. And so the Block 70 is on offer here as a 12,000 hour service life aircraft from the starting point. And so we think that's pretty unique in the industry. 50% more than competitors typically rate.
So I wouldn't be able to tell you what future engines or future weapons might be, right? Because we don't know what those are going to be and how they will be compatible with an existing design or even with a new design, right? It's hard to answer that. But it is our desire and it is our goal to make sure that the Indian Air Force's requirements, for their specific technologies that they want to make this an Indian aircraft with specific capabilities that meet the IF requirements, we will be able to use those, right? So we've been talking with the IF about that. What kind of systems they want, what kind of capabilities they want, and how do we integrate those. We have looked at future upgrades, but it's too early to say, what kind of new systems or new weapons or engines might be there. We'll have to see how those evolve and mature before we say, can they be integrated on there.
But we're laying in the architecture that will allow Indian Air Force to do that and to be a prime mover in what's beyond Block 70, Block 80. This aircraft's going to be flying for another 30 to 40 years. Well, so at this point in time, I have more than 300 APG-83s, F-16V upgrades on contract. On contract, right? So the relative numbers are hugely different. They haven't sold that many aircraft around the world in the 30 years they've been in business, and I have that much in contract in the last couple of years. And we're obviously in conversations, and some of those have gone to Congress in terms of notifications and are in the press and multiple nations. We have just recently notified the State Department notified Congress and went through the notification period for new production aircraft for Bahrain. And Bahrain at press conference at BIDEC, their International Defense Expo, just 2 weeks ago, announced to the world at a press conference that they were going to procure new F-16s. And so I'm strongly confident that with 3,000 plus F-16s around the world, I see several hundred more upgrades. I've already got more than 300. We're in discussions, and it's public in Greece, about the upgrade of much of their fleet. Those conversations are ongoing between us and Greece and the U.S. government. And beyond that, there's hundreds and hundreds more. And so 400, 500, 600 more upgrades, in my view, over the next 5 to 7 to 10 years. And those upgrades will be common in many ways, with the radar, the mission computer, the data bus management system, the displays with respect to what's being offered here in India, and then new production as well. I'm in conversations. I leave here tomorrow. I'm going to another country on my way to have a conversation on my way back home. I'll be home for 2 or 3 days, then I'll be off on the road again. And we have conversations going on with a number of Central European countries, Southeast Asia countries, Mediterranean countries. I am very optimistic that the world and the user community understands the great value of the F-16, right, and the Block 70 in particular, with the technologies that we put in. One of the reasons the F-16 has been so successful over the years, with 55 repeat buys, 16 customers 55 times came back and said, hey, we're interested in more F-16s, and signed up for more F-16s, is because it has not stayed static, right? While the plan form, what we call the plan form, looks the same. That's the only thing that's the same about the F-16 today, the Block 70 today, from where it was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, right? The structure is built differently. We're offering it in 12,000 hours. All of the avionics are new. All the capacities are new. It is the Block 70 is a vastly different aircraft, and it's been our ability to do those upgrades, to insert that technology that has extended this platform out to 25, 26, 27 countries. I'll leave the Gripen E to be
Yeah.
talked about by Saab.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll talk about F-16.
Absolutely.
There really is nothing sunset about this aircraft. Just announcement 2 weeks ago of a new production and a new version, right? And we have ongoing strong demand, strong interest. My Air Force, the United States Air Force, is upgrading their aircraft and has told publicly their intent to fly the aircraft for another 30 years to 2045, 2046. So while it might be convenient for somebody to say, oh, it's been around for a long time and it's sunset, it's belied by the facts. The facts are the aircraft will continue to be flown for many years. And the facts are that the technologies that will feed it come from fifth generation aircraft that only Lockheed Martin has to offer. Those are the facts. As time will go on and new technologies get reinserted again, and the fact that we've got a very common radar here, for this is just one example, with the F-35 radar, funds will be poured into the F-35 for upgrades of that aircraft in the same way they have been done for the F-16 over the last many years. And so as improvements to the F-35 happen, funded through that program, there's application to those capabilities and technologies back into F-16s. And so what does Block 80, what does a Block 90 look like? This aircraft will continue. And the reason that it can continue, by the way, one of the other reasons is because of how the aircraft was designed. Structurally, it's superior. And from a speed, from an aero performance perspective, it's superior than anything in its class. It goes significantly greater distances. When in a combat load, it carries significantly greater combat payload. It turns faster. It accelerates more quickly. And so for all of those reasons, you look at the outside of the aircraft, you say, well, it hasn't changed in 40 years. That's because it was designed properly to start with. And we've tried lots of things. Yeah. What if we did this or that, or put a canard up here or whatever? And no, it doesn't make it better. It's an outstanding and unmatched aero performer. I think that's mostly a conversation that needs to happen between governments, right? But I'll say this, just foundationally, right? The F-16 offers a tremendous opportunity going forward for a strategic relationship. So I think that you've got to ask that question to the Indian government. Right. All I can say is, from a Lockheed Martin perspective, is that this is a great opportunity. It's unique. It's unmatched in my view in terms of what's on offer, right? The one and only production line to establish a single solitary F-16 production line in India, not just for Indian aircraft, but for the global community, right? And I have new production opportunities ahead of us, as evidenced by the fact that Bahrain has announced to the world publicly that they're We've got that question a lot, obviously, over the last several months. And we work very closely with the U.S. government, and you can appreciate that the Prime Minister made a trip to the U.S. Over the summer, right? And since that time, the Secretary of Defense has been here in India, and just this week, early this week, the Secretary of State was here in India. And all of those cases, and all of the comments coming out of the U.S. administration have been fully supportive of F-16.
So let me start by saying what our plan is right now. As Randy mentioned, we are looking at moving the entire production line. Yeah. What that means is it's not just an assembly line, right? We are bringing in the assembly, the final assembly and checkout, as we call it, to begin with, right? That will start with, integrating, putting the pieces together, right? And then integrating it and testing it and flying it. That's the first piece. Then we start with building the components. The fuselage components, the forward, center, aft, the wings, we will start bringing various components in here and doing, assembling those or building those here. Then we'll also do the detailed parts that go inside those, right? All of the things that go inside and assemble those. Now, we have, beyond that, we will also start looking at engines. We will start looking at, the various pieces of avionics and cockpit systems and things like that that go onto the aircraft and making those here. Now, the further you go into these various phases, the less definition is available as to what exactly will be done here, because we need to first understand what capabilities exist, what technologies are already here, what technologies can mature to come to that point, what processes need to be imparted to make those compatible with the F-16 Block 70, and how all of that matures together. It's very easy for somebody to say, we're going to do everything here. We need to be able to put that in terms of timeline, in terms of cost, right, and in terms of maturity. So our goal is to define a program that takes this crawl, walk, run approach, right? And we have done this worldwide in many countries. We know how to do this, right? Lockheed Martin has done this in 4 different countries on the F-16. We've already done it in 2 different countries, for example, on F-35. This is part of what we do globally. And so what we are trying to do is take that model further now here by doing it exclusively in India, right? So it's not that we are just doing one part, we're just doing assembly and saying that's what we are going to do. We're doing as much as we can over here, as much as the industry can absorb, and as much as technology we can transfer into being able to do that here quickly, right? And being able to meet the Air Force's need. What we are looking at is manufacturing as many as 3 to 4 aircraft a month. So that's the capacity that we want to build, because Rand is going to be selling these aircraft around the world. We don't want to just do it for India, we want to do it for the world.
Plus aircraft over the next 5 to 7 years. The real question is the timing, right? Because there's a demand right now, and there's customers around the world that are engaging me and Lockheed Martin and the U.S. government about the opportunity for new production F-16s. But they're not going to wait, right? Mm-hmm. And so as we go forward, we'll replace those. Bahrain's a perfect example, right? We would expect that deal would be consummated over the next several weeks, and certainly by the end of the year. And the reason we have announced the world we're moving F-16 production line into Greenville, South Carolina, was largely for the purpose of the Bahrain aircraft. And so the question of how many aircraft we would build in an India production facility is a function of time, right? But the sooner we get started, the better. We've got customers coming at us right now. And our intent is to move production here as quickly as possible. And so 100 plus aircraft in the next 5 to 7 years. And we have always been able, across the years, to work with individual countries. Of the 4,588, soon over 4,600 aircraft, and the 27 countries who have various blocks, there's 138 different versions. And the reason is because every country's got some slightly different requirements, right? And so this aircraft is uniquely able to integrate unique requirements. And with that, teeing that up, I'll let Holly talk about it.
So we've been having those conversations with the Indian Air Force. and with Indian industry, right? So we're trying to do both to say, what technologies and capabilities already exist in India. It's very interesting that people talk about, transfer of technology as something that's just coming from abroad, right? Indian industry already has a lot of technical capabilities, right? What needs to be done is take that to the next step in terms of volume, in terms of being able to be, capable of doing something for the worldwide base. So that's something that we are judging right now. What technologies already are there and what can be matured to become part of this, number one. We are also talking with the IF to see what the IF requirements are, right? Because the Indian Air Force has some, as Randy mentioned, unique requirements that we need to be able to adjust to and integrate. So those discussions are ongoing. After we get to that RFI stage, we will be able to get into that more detail and more in depth with that. And then the third piece is, we have to make sure that we do something that meets the IF timelines, right? If it takes many, many years to go mature a technology and develop it, then it doesn't meet the IF needs, right? We need something that the Indian Air Force has a very specific, timeline that they are running against, right? So we have to make sure that we balance that to say what can be developed quickly and have this aircraft be delivered in time to meet the IF requirements, right? And then the final piece of it is, the global supply chain that we just talked about so much. There's a business case issue, right? If you're developing a niche technology for 100 aircraft, right, that's one business case. But if you're developing that technology for 500 or 600 aircraft, all of a sudden the business case starts to be different. So all of those pieces are being evaluated right now to see what makes the most sense. What technologies can be used by the IAF, when can they be developed, and what can be matured to the global supply chain. So all of those are being evaluated right now by us. So what we have been doing is not focusing on one particular platform. What we have been focusing in on is how do we mature technologies that can be developed in the future for India, from India. Make in India for India, but make in India also for the world, right? So we're not looking at one particular platform. We're looking at what can be matured to become a successful developer of technologies around the world. So we are not looking at only Tejas or only AMCA or only another fifth generation. We're just saying, how are the technologies going to mature so that they can be developed into the future? What platform they get integrated in, what particular use Indian Air Force has for it, or worldwide, are things to be defined later. First, start looking at what can be done for 100 aircraft and hundreds of upgrades around the world. Once that technology matures, whether it be a display or a data link or a radio or a communication system, once that technology matures and industry has that capability, the platforms will be there.
So this is a really ambitious project, right? And one of the things that we believe Lockheed Martin brings to the table is successful experience at doing this. If you take a look back at what we've done in other countries over the years, Ali mentioned it briefly, but in Korea is a perfect example. Where as a part of an F-16 project there 15 years ago, we worked with their industry and we developed their trainer aircraft, right? And so that trainer aircraft, the T-50, is hugely successful. It's got exports out of Korea to multiple countries around the world, and we've been so successful in that process that it is now the jointly offered solution from Lockheed Martin together with our partner KAI in Korea, for the U.S. Air Force needs for their trainer programs or their advanced training program. And it's a remarkably effective and operationally effective aircraft. Right? It's really good at what it does. And that's a byproduct of a collaborative experience between Lockheed Martin and Korean industry. We've done the same thing in Turkey with TAI. In fact, TAI started what is today TAI, the largest defense industry in Turkey. It started as a joint venture between Lockheed Martin and GE, who is our partner here in India on the engine side, right, and the government of Turkey. So we have successfully delivered on these kinds of ambitious projects again and again and again. And we're confident we can do it here in India.
And it's a perfect example of how we think the industries will mature here, right? Rather than focusing only on, I'm going to develop something for one particular platform, how do I become part of a successful global manufacturing ecosystem? An aerospace ecosystem that can supply, not just for India, but for the world. That's kind of what our focus has always been. And I think that's where the Indian industry sees the biggest potential. Looked at over 60 companies. And when I say looked at, we started off more than a year ago with actually having a supplier conference. That was more than a year ago. But after that, we've actually had our teams visit these companies. We've had several of Indian industries come visit us in the US. We've had this dialogue continue with Tata and Lockheed Martin together also. In fact, we have a team right now visiting industry around the country this week and past week, right? So we continue to evolve this and study this and evolve the overall concept. So we're looking at everything, right? We're looking at electronics, we're looking at systems, we're looking at hydraulics, we're looking at structures, we're looking at integration capability. Everything is on the table, including components for the engine, right? Who has got the manufacturing capability? Who has got key technologies? How can they be matured and how can they be brought into the mix, right? We've talked with the IAF, talk about what specific things the IAF is looking for in the future, so that we can take things and mature them to meet the Indian Air Force's need also, not just the global, but also the Indian Air Force unique requirements. So all of that process is going on right now.